Hello everyone! In this video I'm going to show you how to use No Such Localization package to localize your application in Unity into different languages. Let's get started! I have a simple scene setup here. In my menu UI I have a panel that includes an image for the title and then 3 buttons for different actions that the user can take. This is a typical menu that you would see in any game. And let's say we want to localize our app to support both English and Spanish. I'll start by downloading the asset from the asset store. So I'm going to open up asset store, wait for it to load up, search for No Such Localization. You can choose between the free and the pro version. In this video, I'm going to use the pro version, which has a lot more features. I've already purchased and downloaded the package. So all I need to do is to press import. For you, you might need to buy it first, download it, and then import it. And let's import the entire package for now. All right, let me close this tab. And everything that came with the package is under this No Such Localization folder. You don't really need to bother looking into the package, but the source code and additional material is there for you. If you want to take a look at the code, feel free to go ahead and do that. There are 3 steps you need to take to make your scene localized. The first one is to create a localization service. So I'm going to create a new object and call it localization, and add a localization service component to it. This is pretty much similar to the event system object that Unity creates when you add a UI element to it, but you have to make it explicitly because there are options on it that you need to set. The first thing I'm going to do is to add the languages that I want to support to my localization service, in this case English and Spanish. Default language and current language are also set to English, and these languages are case sensitive, so this English will be different than the one that I have above. And that is step 1. You just make sure that you have one localization service in your scene. Second, we need to provide translations for the different phrases we have in our scene. In this case, resume, settings, and exit are the 3 phrases that we have that we need to translate into different languages. And there are multiple ways that you can provide translations for your application. The easiest one is to use this standalone translation source, which I'm going to use in this video. But if I look for translation source, you will see that you can provide CSV and JSON translators as well. For now, let's stick with the basic one. And setting up your translations is easy. You basically enter the different phrases you have. In this case, we have 3 phrases, so I enter 3. The first one is resume. The second phrase we have is settings. And the third one is exit. I messed up the order, but it doesn't really matter. And for each phrase, we need to provide the different translations that we have. So for each one, I'm going to say for English, it's the same word. And for Spanish, it's going to be another. I looked up these translations just before this. I don't know how to speak Spanish. Again, for the second phrase, which is resume, I'm going to have the English translation and the Spanish translation. This one. And then for settings, I'm going to provide English and Spanish translations. And I'm not going to say these words because I will butcher them. But now that we have translations for all our phrases, we are done with our translation source. The last piece is to go through all the components that need to get translated or localized in any other way, and basically add a localizer component to them. Let's start with our image. What we need to do is to change its source image, which is a sprite, depending on the language. For this case, we have a image sprite localizer. Once I add that, as you can see, the sprite went to none. That is because the default asset is none, and we haven't included any specific assets per language. So I'm going to enter 2, which is the 2 languages we have, and tell this localizer that for English, we want to use one of the sprites that I have made for this demo application. And then for Spanish language, we want to use the Spanish version of it, which I already made in my external application. Now, if I go to my localization service and change the current language to Spanish, it is going to show the Spanish image that I provided. Notice that as I'm typing, because the language that is currently set, which is EN, does not exist, you will get empty results for the components that are localized. The next step is to do a similar thing for the text components that we have. I'm going to select all of them and add a text localizer to them. And then for each one, I need to provide a phrase. So for this resume one, I'm going to provide the phrase. And then for the settings button text, I'm going to provide the phrase that I translated before. And then for the exit one, I am going to provide the phrase again. And that is all that I need to do. So if I go to my service and change the current language to Spanish, as you can see again, when the language is not valid, all the text boxes show an error message to indicate that currently the settings are not correct. If I change the language to Spanish, you will see the Spanish text. And if I change it back to English, everything is in English. Now let's go ahead and basically create a menu so that we can change change our language at runtime. Everything works at edit time, and that is basically consistent with how the editor works. You don't need to run your application to see your translations. And there is a very easy way that we can add some buttons that change the language for our application. I'm going to create a new panel, put it under our menu panel at the very top, adjust the size of it, make sure it doesn't have a background image. And then under our No Such Localization assets, in the example prefabs, there's a sticky button that you can use to change languages. So I'm going to add that to our new panel, which I'm going to rename to language panel. And the sticky button, let me add a layout group, the horizontal layout group to my language panel, and set it to set everything in the middle. And I'm going to name the first one English toggle button. Sorry, a sticky button. It's basically a toggle button with a custom style. So it doesn't have a checkbox, but shows a border around the image. And as you can see, it has a custom script called language toggle with a language that is going to change our language to. And then I'm going to create another one for Spanish language. What I need to do is change the flag that it shows, the flag of Spain, and make sure the custom script changes the language to Spanish. Another thing I need to do is to make a toggle group so that only one of these two toggles is selected at any given point in time. So I'm going to drag and drop that into our, mark them as on, and then the language changes even at edit time. Now let's go ahead and run our scene. as I change the language, I will see the reflected results. This is how you can translate your application using No Such Localization package. It is super easy to do. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to add another language to this same setup, but this time we will use a right to left language, Persian. If you are using Arabic or Persian, you need to take some extra steps for the translations to work properly.